Okay, so we're going to have some time, starting from today, to look at the first 6 months of the year of the administration on the fiscal space, on the equity side, on fixed income, and all the way down. So we need to sit back as we start this round. Let's get the first word on the second half of the year with a bit of a look back into the first 6 months from Bismarck Rwani, the Chief Executive Officer at Financial Derivatives Company and Channel Television Economic Consultant. Good morning, sir. It's good to have you on the program. We hope you had a very nice weekend. Let's do a little bit of a piggyback into the first 6 months of the year. Give us a summary.
6 months of the year, the first half of 2018, compared to the second half of 2017, we looked at 12 variables. 6 of them improved, 4 were flat, and 2 declined. The most notable was oil production was flat, the exchange rate was flat, and also the price of diesel was flat. But of greater import, the fact that the price of oil went up by 25% between the second half of 2017 and the first half of 2018, by 25% from $56 a barrel to $70 a barrel average. Also, headline inflation came down cumulatively by 2.49% from an average of 15.87% to an average of 13.38%. Also, the stock market capitalization went up by 1.91 all told, even though the later part of the half we saw some bleeding in the market. Now, the treasury bill rate was more interesting. It went down from 15%, which was the average in the second half of last year, to 10.3%, which is very good news. It came down by 407 basis points. Now, the worrying points are 2. One is that the month-on-month inflation has increased sharply by almost 4% to about 13% when you annualize it. I think that is quite troubling. Also, we see that before I forget, the external reserves also went up sharply, which is a good thing. So even though the Naira traded flat, the external reserves built up. So I think those are the key elements that we are concerned about. Now, taking a look at the future, what you are going to see, and then the PMI actually came down from 68 to 49, which is another thing to worry. But looking forward, we think that in the second half of 2018, you are going to see increased spending. You are going to see a much more focused approach. At least in the third quarter, you're going to see a lot of determination to implement the budget, because in the last quarter, there's going to be only politics. We think that some measures are going to be taken to deal with. There will be a supplementary budget. There will be some gross capital formation because of investments in infrastructure, but you won't feel that impact until much later. We think that there will be pressure on the exchange rate as the demand for Forex begins to increase. And we're already beginning to see some pressure on the Federal Allocation Committee allocation, because it looks as if the oil production disruption is beginning to have a mild effect on the external accounts. But all said and told, I believe that the second half of 2018 is not going to be any different from the first half of 2018. Those positive indicators will increase. The only thing that we'll have to worry about is that month-on-month inflation will increase, and also the year-on-year inflation will wear out, and we begin to see an increase towards the later part of the year.
Mr. Rwani, thank you very much. That's giving us a broad overview, but let's break it down a little bit in terms of spending. We know that the capital expenditure last year, the finance minister says 1.5 trillion naira. That's a record figure. Well, of course, we expect the CAPEX spending to also start from this month, all things being equal. But let's talk about the social spending. Part of what the administration wants to do is to ramp up on social investments program, or what we call the SIP, and that includes spending part of the Abacha's loot, about $300 million into conditional cash transfers. Do you think this spending into the social investment program would have some bearings on inflation, prices of goods and services in the second half?
No. What you're talking about, $300 million is 115 billion naira. It's about 1/4 or 1/5 of what the Federal Allocation Committee shares every month. It will have minimal or no impact. In any case, what is required to turn the economy around is investment, not consumption. And wasted consumption by these handout programs. After you give a guy 5,000 or 10,000, it's not going to do much with it. What you need is to create an environment for him to get a job, so he has income improvement as well as opportunity improvement. I think that's so. We must, as we go into an election, we must differentiate between what is election gimmicks and spending from which is fundamental to the economy. The economic problems will always be there, and they'll be solved by long-term solutions to problems. What these gimmicks will do is just to get sound bites and headlines, and they will not achieve much.
When we look at the manufacturing, you mentioned the PMI there. We've had some good indicators, foreign reserves and the rest, but the PMI manufacturing reading seems to be lagging very seriously. What are your concerns? How do you think we can work on this?
Two things will have to happen. One, we have to commit ourselves to investment, that is public sector investment, encourage private sector investment. We need to come down on interest rates because the cost of the PMI has many components, but one of it is inventory. If the interest rate, if the effective borrowing rates are still very high, you would find that manufacturers will carry low inventory. But more important is one item which the NBS has not released up to date recently, is the Consumer Confidence Index. Consumer Confidence Index was -6 the last time we released it, and that's very low. We need to build consumer confidence. We need to build that up by ensuring that there's stability. I think they've done some things in terms of maintaining inflation, the inflation trajectory, but there is a need to bring down effective lending rates and also to encourage banks to lend to the private sector. Credit to the private sector is stalled. Credit to the public sector is crowding out the credit to the private sector. So we need that together with other variables put together. But all said and told, we are in a better place this year than where we were last year.